Hi, Arcfieldweather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, July the 29th. The tropics are starting to act up again in the Atlantic Basin. We have a system we'll have to monitor over the next several days. Could ultimately have an impact somewhere in the southeastern part of the U.S., Gulf of Mexico region, the southeast U.S. coastline, maybe even up to the Carolinas. We'll have to monitor it closely over the next several days or so. Meanwhile, there's a strong low pressure area right now spinning over New England. It is producing some heavy rainfall up across southern part of New England. This is the latest radar loop from the College of DuPage weather website, and you can see the rotation in the radar echoes right here. This is pretty much associated with a kind of a potent, small but potent upper level low that pushed off the southern New England coastline, now kind of rotating around to the south and west. Even some showers moving into northeastern PA and down into the southeastern and central part of east central part of Pennsylvania, as well as New Jersey. Some heavy rain falling at this hour across Connecticut, and Rhode Island got hit by some heavy rain as well. So this will continue to kind of move to the west and ultimately just weaken. But again, for this morning, some heavy rainfall, especially across the southern part of New England. Well, last week we talked about the possibility of some tropical activity developing in the central and western part of the Atlantic Ocean, all as a result of strong high pressure ridging that sets up over the southeastern part of Canada. That is one red flag that I always look at this time of the year. If you get certainly strong high pressure ridging over southeastern Canada, maybe northern New England, that oftentimes opens the door for some tropical activity to move towards the Gulf of Mexico, the Bahamas, maybe even as far south as the Caribbean Sea. Even if the models don't see it at the particular time, when I see a strong high pressure ridge over southeastern Canada in late July, certainly August and September as well, look out below that ridge. And here we have, all of a sudden, sure enough, a tropical system has formed here, right in this region right here, and it looks like it'll continue on a west-northwest track. And certainly all eyes in the southeastern part of the U.S., including Florida, should monitor this system over the next several days. There's a possibility that it does have an impact all the way into Florida or anywhere else across the northern Gulf of Mexico and the southeastern part of the U.S. It could ultimately ride up along the Atlantic seaboard, producing rain at least as far north as the Carolina coastline as an example here. So it's something we'll monitor over the next several days. Well, let's take a look at last night's zero-Z run of the Canadian model. I think it has a pretty good hand on the tropical situation here. We're kind of taking a broader view compared to normal. This is of North America because I wanted to kind of look at the southwestern part of the Atlantic Ocean. And here is that ridge that I alluded to up front here. A very strong upper level ridge centered over the southeastern part of Canada that oftentimes opens the door for tropical systems to ride to the west on its bottom side, down to the south of the ridge, underneath the ridge, as it were. And again, oftentimes ultimately impacting the Gulf of Mexico, the Bahamas, anywhere in the southwestern Atlantic Ocean, maybe even as far south as the Caribbean Sea. So again, this is a key factor that started to recognize a week or two ago, building in the southeastern part of of Canada. Now, another system right here. Let's kind of clear the map here, and look at this right here. We have this upper level low that is pounding away at southern New England this morning with some of that heavy rainfall. It just weakens as it moves over land over the next 12 to 24 hours or so. But for now, some gale force winds along the coastal sections of southern New England, some heavy rain. First Rhode Island, now Connecticut, and it looks like some of that rain will back all the way south and west into at least the northern half of the eastern mid-Atlantic region. We're talking about New York City, eastern Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. But here, kind of a rogue upper-level low causes surface low over New England, and here is that strong ridging to its north. Now, let's press forward here with the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps, again using the zero-Z Canadian model. We have some troughiness that we'll have to deal with respect to that tropical system. We'll show that in a minute. Here we go by this evening, and that upper level low over southern New England continues to move to the west. It'll ultimately just kind of weaken and fade away. Here we go by tomorrow morning. It's already weakened now that it's over land. A lot of ridging right here. Southeastern Canada all the way into the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. And again, there's that tropical system that may cut it right underneath this system over the next several days or so. Now, let's clear the map here and move forward here with time. And here we go into the middle part of this week. Notice upper level low over the Pacific Northwest, the interior part of the northwestern U.S. By midweek. Then we go into the late week. And again, we continue to see this upper level low feature here that could ultimately kind of play a role in where the tropical system ends up going. This is the end of the work week here, and we have kind of an intensifying trough here over eastern Canada. It kind of extends into the northeastern U.S. This is all the way now out into the end of the upcoming weekend, Sunday. And this is the feature as reflected at 500 millibars right here by the Canadian model. So again, this is something we'll have to monitor in Florida, the rest of the southeast U.S., and again, it could ultimately have an impact up the eastern coastline, let's say at least to the Carolina coastline. So this is how it looks at the 500 millibar level by the time we get to the end of the upcoming weekend. Again, this trough right here could play a role in pulling this back towards the landmass of the U.S. here by the end of the week, and we're talking the early part of next week, and that, by the way, is the first week of August. Now, let's take a look and see how this looks at the surface level here. This is the, again, the 0Z run of the Canadian model. By the way, just take a look at this, kind of a classic look here with high pressure over the Atlantic Ocean, high pressure over the Pacific Ocean, and low pressure over the U.S. And this is kind of in the big picture, in the large scheme of things, this is kind of a typical pattern for the middle of the summer, in that the oceans feature high pressure being a little bit cooler than the heated landmass here across North America. So you typically have strong high pressure over the cooler waters, cooler being relative to the landmass that certainly gets heated up by the sun. So you have kind of high, low, high type of pattern here. And this is, again, right here at the surface level. Now, let's move forward here and watch what happens with this tropical system here. Here we go into the early part, the middle part of this week. Here we go Tuesday morning, and then into the early part of Wednesday. And by the way, weather becomes much more unsettled again in the mid-Atlantic region, beginning today with that upper level low over New England. And that's after a tranquil weekend here. But we'll move forward here, and we have high pressure still over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. And we'll see that this system ends up showing up right near Florida here on this Canadian model line. Here we go, the Florida Straits, maybe north of Cuba, south of Florida by the time we get to the early part of the upcoming weekend. Not a powerhouse as depicted on this particular model one, but we'll see how things evolve over the next few days. And here we go by the second half of the upcoming weekend. And again, we have this low pressure area at this particular time just off the west coast of Florida. Don't take that verbatim here. It could end up being on the eastern side of Florida. And again, we have this strong trough that forms right in this part of North America, and that could help to steer things, maybe pull it back towards the U.S. here by the end of the upcoming weekend into the early part of next week. And again, we're into August by this time. This is Sunday, August 4th. Then this particular model one has it moving up on the Gulf side of Florida, and then kind of up along the Atlantic seaboard. By the time we get to the middle part of next week, it's situated over the Carolinas. And we'll see, again, how things evolve over the next several days. But certainly the main weather highlights as we begin the new work week. Strong low pressure spinning over New England this morning, and the Atlantic Basin tropical season starts to look active again, at least with one system right here. And it looks like we'll probably have a much more active time period going from August into September. So certainly the tropics have been kind of quiet during much of the month of July, which is about to end. We move into August later this week, and here we go. This is the August 7th time frame here. Something we'll have to monitor over the next several days. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.